Hello, everyone. This is Ms. Gordon. I have some lecture comments for you having to do with our first chapter in American government, AP US Gov. So let me just say to you first off, the slides are out on my Google Classroom site. I'm also placing out there my lecture notes that I'm using to do this lecture this morning. So make sure that you look particularly at the lecture notes, because there'll be valuable information there that will help you follow along with the content of the slides. Okay, so let's get started. Chapter 1, the American Government and Politics, the Stories of Our Nation. So I've added some slides to the PowerPoint deck, and there are different types of democracies that the authors, Waples and Abernathy, are going to be covering in this chapter. We should be aware of this, and we should, as students, understand what these different types of democracies are. So first, a participatory democracy is where you have citizens, and the citizens have the power, okay? They have the power to directly decide on policy and politicians, and they're holding those people, politicians, responsible for implementing the decisions that are based upon the policy that they're writing. Participatory democracy, the citizens have the power, they're directly involved. A pluralist democracy is one in which you have a group that are competing with each other, okay? But in a pluralist democracy, you don't have any one group that dominates the whole. So if we read our definition, it says a pluralist democracy is a model of democracy in which no one group dominates politics, and organized groups compete with each other to influence policy. Organized groups, i.e. interest groups, which we'll be studying later on in the semester. But when you have a pluralist form of government, you have this tension, you have this competition between almost the haves and the have-nots, and groups that pay powerful lobbyists, that wine and dine politicians, and so that laws can get passed that are friendly to their perspective and their interests. And so that, you know, when you have the power and you have the wealth and you can hire a staff of people to push your interests forward and up to the top of the agenda of politicians in the society, you tend to come out you tend to come out on top more so than other groups that don't have those resources as much. Elitism, or an elite democracy, is a democracy in which a small number of people, usually those people who are wealthy or well-educated in society, they have a lot of influence in political decision-making. And then the last one I want to just draw your attention to is a direct democracy. And that's where citizens are directly responsible for making policy decisions. We do not have that in the United States. We have a participatory democracy where we are involved, we have the power, but that power is exercised through our elected representatives. Okay? I just want to throw this little piece of trivia on the slide. So there's been 5 times in US history where the person who lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College actually won the presidency. And the most recent of those was Donald Trump in 2016. Hillary Clinton had more votes, but Donald Trump won the Electoral College. Same thing happened in 2000, and there's a Supreme Court case attached to that election, Bush v. Gore, which we will be studying later on as we start to look at interest groups and the power of the Electoral College in government. All right, so I'm not going to cover every single slide, but I am going to stop at places where I think you need to pay attention. This whole commentary that the authors go over in chapter 1, Bridget Mergens, and there's another student that they discuss. I want to say her name was Liz Laverty. Both of those students and what happens to them at their school speaks to the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, inalienable rights, and the guarantees that are promised by those 2 documents to all Americans, specifically in their case, freedom of expression, right? Freedom to exercise one's religion without the fear of being persecuted by the government or in any way retaliated by the government. There's a picture of Liz Loverty. And we talked about in class last week this Equal Access Act of 1984. You need to kind of pay attention to that when we do our first quiz and what that particular act said and what it meant. And it is in chapter 1. And if